Something that I'm a big fan of are unions. I love unions. I love the concept of a bunch of people who work a certain field of profession, getting together and deciding our bosses and the upper management and the money men at the top. Let's use our numbers to leverage power in our workplace. Let's use it to get rights in the workplace. Let's use it to get certain things that the industry might decide to do that'll a bunch of us over to not happen by basically being able to have the power to hold an entire industry hostage by simply not working. I really like the idea of unions, the ability to strike, the ability to have some level of democratic choice on who is in charge of things. It's not perfect, it's not socialism, it's not even market socialism, but it's nice, you know. It's sort of like a little island of worker democracy within the hellish, fiery brimstone landscape of American capitalism, right? Unfortunately, particularly when it comes to unions and striking, the vast majority of Americans only know about unions and strikes when it happens to, like, the media industry, when writers' strikes happen. And overwhelmingly, the vast majority of Americans, when they find out that a writer's strike has occurred, the immediate, like, next thing that happens is, as a result, the next season of whatever show they like the most probably ends up sucking a lot because the writers... they weren't written by the same writers. It was like a bunch of executives or interns writing, right? I'm sure you can think of plenty of shows you enjoy that got fucked over for a season or two by a writer's strike. A lot of Americans, they hear strike, and they think writer's strike. And they think, yes, bad. You know? I literally was ranting about this to my friends a couple days before this Hollywood strike that I'm going to be talking about in a minute happened. I was talking to my friends about how so many Americans just hate strikes and hate unions just on the basis that the only time they're exposed to that kind of thing is how it affects their favorite TV shows negatively. Because I've literally seen people, like, get a bad taste in their mouth about strikes and unions because of writers' strikes, making their favorite show not as good for, like, the next season, because people are literally that, like, selfishly minded. They really don't see the people that work on the media they consume as people, more so as, like, an idea, you know, more like a sort of a soulless corporate. It's why, like, you see a lot of the chud content that's spewed out to try to popularize on hate against whatever new piece of media they deem as woke. They push really heavy into, this wasn't made by people, this is a cash grab made by a soulless corporation. Because their cruelty towards that media and the people who made it seems a lot less cruel if it's towards a soulless, faceless corporation and not an actual team of people who put their heart and soul and hours of their lives, perhaps even years of their lives, into making a piece of art. Usually because they have literally no other choice other than, you know, make it, or they don't have a job, right? They can't afford to live because capitalism. And what's frustrated me so much about this is that it's very evident that Americans respond to a good thing negatively because it impacts them negatively, and they are not willing to take even the smallest amount of inconvenience in return for some level of, like, change or positive reform. Like, a lot of Americans will not trade a tiny bit of inconvenience for a massive amount of positive change. They just won't do it. And for the first time ever, I've actually started to see that kind of flip around, because literally a couple days after I went on this rant to my friends in Discord, a big strike broke out in Hollywood. And I've never seen more broad, general support for a unionized strike in my entire life. Certainly not in the media industry. It seems like across the board, people are generally pretty in favor of this. Most likely because TikTok, YouTube, you know, all these platforms have been making this particular thing a main headline. And so everybody is hearing about it and learning about, like, what the risk to these workers' careers are. And so that's a good thing. But it is strange that it took so long to finally happen, right? Anyway, this is from the New York Times. Labor Day looms as crisis point in Hollywood stalemate. Ongoing strike could disrupt the entertainment industry in fundamental ways, putting the 2024 box office and the fall broadcast lineup in jeopardy. For those that don't know, literally across the entirety of Hollywood, like the entirety of the entertainment production like industry, workers are striking. Like, think of a job that is involved, from like people that set up the lights to make like the lighting in a scene look right. They're striking. There's like this YouTuber lady on YouTube Shorts that gets showed to me all the time who's like an intimacy coordinator for like coordinating sex scenes in movies and TV shows. They're striking. Actors are striking. Big actors and like the smaller actors. Like most the actors that are producing the most amount of money for Hollywood are actors whose names you don't even know. They're all striking. This is an insanely broad strike across the entertainment industry. And I've never seen more support for it, and I'm very glad to see it, because they have Hollywood by the balls right now. They really do. Nicholas Cantu, the voice actors of one of the Ninja Turtles in Gumball, is in the strike. Yeah, he also played a pretty cool character in Walking Dead World Beyond. In May, when 11,500 movie and television writers went on strike, Hollywood companies like Netflix, NBC Universal, and Disney reacted with what amounted to a shrug. The walkout wasn't great, but executives had expected it for months. They could ride it out. By the way, I believe the reason why they're striking is because, in large part, because Hollywood is trying to replace a ton of jobs with AI. I'm pretty sure the reason this is happening, the main reason is a ton of people in the entertainment industry are going to lose their jobs to AI, and a bunch of other people like in the industry are also striking in solidarity. So if this strike fails and this goes through, shit tons of people, mostly writers, lose their job and are replaced with AI. So in the future, if this doesn't go through, most Hollywood movies are going to be written with like ChatGPT. The angry response from Hollywood's corporate ranks when actors went out on Friday was dramatically different. What began as an inconvenience has become a crisis. For a start, the Actors Union is much more powerful than the Writers Guild, with a membership of about 160,000. That includes world-famous celebrities studied in the art of delivering messages to captivated audiences. The film and TV scripts that studios had banked in the case of a writer's strike have been suddenly rendered inert, deprived of actors to bring them to life. Numerous big-budget movies that had been shooting had to shut down immediately, including Twisters, Venom 3, Deadpool 3, and Gladiator 2. Tons of movies that are like big blockbusters are having to shut down. And this is good, because even though it's delaying these movies, and regardless of how excited you are for them, these executives are even more excited for these movies to come out and get a return on the amount of money they've invested in everything they've invested in the movies so far. They don't get a return on any of this until the movies come out. So delaying the movie's production and release is a massive hit to these executives. It's like twisting their balls slowly but surely, you know? Like, you know, you grab someone by the balls and you start twisting their ball sack. It's not going to hurt for the first, 30 degrees or so, but you start twisting it too far, and it's gonna start to fucking hurt, you know? It's gonna start to really hurt. So we just gotta keep twisting the ball sack. That's what they're doing. They're twisting the ball sack, and they just gotta keep twisting. Studios had just gotten the release schedule looking normal again, with one big movie following another. Yeah, COVID really fucked over Hollywood, and now it's right back into the fryer, you know? Another significant lull in the offerings may be devastating for theaters. Oh, theaters are going to suffer from this too, that's true. This year's box office has already been underwhelming, and with striking actors barred from publicity efforts, films scheduled for the second half of 2023 could be affected, especially those with awards aspirations. One of the studio executives on Friday predicted it could imperil at least one of the national cinema chains. Bobby Bagby Ford, the chief creative officer and executive vice president of B&B Theaters, a mid-level chain with more than 50 locations in 14 states, said the strikes have impacted the industry at a difficult time. The duration of the ongoing strike will play a significant role in its impact on cinemas, Ms. Bagby Ford said. If it remains short enough to prevent an overwhelming backlog of movies, the situation can be managed. I'm curious, chat. How many of you guys have ever worked for a short-handed employer? Like, let's say you worked at, like, a McDonald's franchise location that just didn't have enough local people applying to work as, say, cooks. And you worked as a cook. And you were, like, one of 2 or 3 cooks. If you've ever been in that situation, you might have felt like how powerful of a position you felt like you were in. Simply because, yeah, you didn't have a lot of literal power, but your boss couldn't fire you because that means there's no cooks. And the place literally just can't be open. Who's been in that position? Me, oh God, so many retail Christmases? Yeah. So I want you to imagine that. But imagine if you and a bunch of your coworkers got together and were like, wait a second, if we all said we're just going to stop working if we don't get what we want as far as like very reasonable demands for workplace desires, realistically, they literally just can't fire us all because the place literally cannot continue to function. You can just do that. Like, if you and your coworkers are that valuable enough to your employer that there's just no way they're going to be willing to replace you, like, it's just too much of a pain in the ass, you can literally just use that as leverage. Like, oh, am I your one cook? Oh, you're going to fire me? Because me and also your only 2 busboys and your only cashier are asking for higher pay? Yeah, we talked. We know how much we make. You said it was illegal for us to tell each other how much money we make? No, we talked. We know how much money we all make. We know we're not getting paid the same amount despite the fact that we should be. We're just not going to come to work until you raise all of our pay to a livable, like a livable, reasonable wage for all of us. What the fuck is your like franchise manager gonna do? Depending on the situation, they literally can't do anything other than like give in. And it may not work as to that extent, but it could work as far as like, oh, are you gonna fire me for taking tomorrow off because I'm sick? I'm sick and I need to take tomorrow off. Like, I know I'm gonna be even sicker tomorrow. You say you're gonna fire me or write me up if I don't come to work tomorrow? Yeah, like, you could use it in a situation like that. Like, it is a lot easier to get together and realize how much leverage you and the workers in certain situations at certain jobs, I'm not saying everywhere, but in certain jobs have, to literally just shut down the business if you just all decide to work together. Xanderhall, that's what happened at my job, Zan. Some of my coworkers who are waiters and waitresses went on strike and left, and then there were just no more waiters and waitresses. And fuck the manager. How is he going? Like, is anybody applying? Probably not. Like, managers don't go out and look for people to work for their job. Like, were they going to put up a help wanted sign? How much is that going to do, right? Like, so it really is like, yeah. I'm not even talking about needing to bully the CEOs. I'm talking about your branch manager or your local owner. Like the guy who's like, who you see. This is the highest up guy that you actually see with your own eyes. You know? Who's Soul Bunny? I'm glad you don't know. You're living a good life. But yeah, I do like I really like to see workers just kind of like twisting the balls of their higher-ups that are just kind of squeezing every bit of labor out of them that they can get. Greg Marcus, chief executive of the Marcus Corporation, which owns the 4th largest theater chain in the country, agreed that the strikes were unnerving, but said that they were less threatening to the industry than the pandemic. Depending on the length of time, there could be a gap in a year. This is the reality of strikes, by the way. The strikes are only as effective as how long they last. Strikes don't matter if you, like, announce how long it's going to last, and it only lasts for, like, a few days. It needs to be a game of chicken. It is a game of chicken. That's what a strike is. It's a game of chicken. You've got the CEOs and the high-ups and the money men, and you've got the workers, and you're on a road driving full speed at each other. Collision is both of you going bankrupt, okay? The thing you have to remember, though, is these CEOs have a lot more to lose than you, and also, these CEOs are going to refuse to lose it. They will not allow that collision to happen. Their car's too nice. They will chicken out. If you can stick it out, they will chicken out. Depending on the length of time, there could be a gap in a year, Mr. Marcus said, but it's not like being closed for months on end, people debating the value of theatrical, and then big gaps because of production delays. Labor Day will arrive in a heartbeat, which would seem to prompt studios to break the standstill with the actors sooner rather than later. But here's the problem. Studio executives were genuinely surprised by the Screen Actors Guild reaction to their proposed terms. They felt they had made significant concessions and were stunned by the union's rhetoric, especially since they were able to amicably negotiate a lucrative new contract in 2020. Yeah, the Actors Guild is just not giving way. Based. The proposed terms included increased pay, protections around the audition process, and more favorable terms for pension and health contributions. They also offered that dancers receive an on-camera rate for rehearsal days. These should all exist, so yeah, this is all based. In particular, the studios, acknowledging in private conversations that they had made in private conversations that they had made a mistake by largely ignoring the writers' demands for guardrails around artificial intelligence, proposed terms for use of AI that their negotiators said would protect actors. But it wasn't enough to avert a strike. So they basically tried to say, okay, Actors Guild, we just only want to be fighting the Writers Guild because they're much weaker without you on their side. So here's what we'll do. We'll negotiate a plan that gives you everything you want and protections for you, but still fucks over the writers. And the Actors Guild was like, no, fuck you. We're in this together. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. But it wasn't to avert a strike. Duncan Crabtree of Ireland, the actor's chief negotiator, said in an interview on Saturday that the studio's proposal was unreasonable. The artificial intelligence terms jeopardize the entire field of acting, Mr. Crabtree of Ireland said, adding that studios also weren't offering actors revenue participation in streaming. Oh yeah, so for those that don't know, I believe it was Matt Damon on Hot Ones talked about this. A big reason why the movie industry has gotten so broad and generalized and basic these days is because back in the day, VHS and DVD releases were a very steady stream of income for studios and actors and everybody who would work on a project. So a movie didn't need to be a box office like blockbuster hit to be worth making. You could make a movie that could make a bunch of money over the course of 5 to 10 years, and you would make it under those pretenses, right? Streaming services do not pay per view to the they don't pay royalties, right? So for example, if you're a B-list actor who appears in a TV show and that TV show runs reruns that have episodes with you acting in them, you get paid every time. His name is Crabtree Ireland? That's such a crazy name, bro. Anyway, every time an episode with you in it would appear, you would get a paycheck. You would get monthly paychecks for each appearance, right? That's not the case when movies or TV shows go on streaming services. It's just one payment, right? Or there might be a certain contract negotiated. But it basically means actors do not make anywhere near as much money over a long period of time as a long-term, royalty payment type system like they used to. The Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, which negotiates on behalf of the studios, these are the bad guys, disputed Mr. Crabtree Ireland's characterization of its members' attitudes, citing terms of its proposal including a groundbreaking AI proposal that protects actors' digital likenesses. So what they're actually saying here is they've created an AI program that preserves that basically allows them to deep fake dead actors into movies. They want to be able to deep fake dead actors into movies so that that actor will play that character forever. No new actor will ever get to play that character because it'll always be cheaper to just go into the audio video library and pull up whoever, right? I know that James Earl Jones signed off on this, so James Earl Jones is now going to be Darth Vader forever. There will never, ever be another actor, voice actor, or anything who ever gets to take a crack at Darth Vader. Who else wrote it off? I believe James Dean wrote off his name and likeness, and it's already been done. A movie has literally already been made in like AI, with AI, that is like not a real movie. It was made completely with AI, and James Dean is the star. Because they have the rights to his likeness even well after his death, yeah. Yeah, so it's like, basically a studio owns you after you die, and like the porn star James Dean, or the actor, the actor. James Dean died in the 1950s, yeah, and it's still real. The thing I'm describing still exists. It uses AI technology with pictures of him. It's a black and white movie. I'm not even kidding, by the way. Like, that's a real fucking thing. I saw it on YouTube the other day, and it was like, that is grim. It's been done before, but now it's like specifically... They're doing this to make it so that if there is a character in a movie franchise played by an actor that is notorious, they can just have that actor play that character forever for an infinite amount of reboots and remakes and sequels, and no new actors ever get to try out that role. Essentially, the effect this could end up having is Hollywood gets frozen with just a lineup of actors that people like most recognize, and no one but those actors ever play any roles anymore. That is what this AI technology is capable of doing. At least in the long term, and that is what the Actors Union and what the Writers Guild are trying to fight against. While media execs try to spin the dual strikes as a positive as production spending tops, While media execs try to spin the dual strikes as a positive as production spending stops, investors are far more concerned that this will be a long strike that hurts the performance of already completed movies and TV series, said Rich Greenfield, an analyst at the firm of Lightshed Partners. I love that. Rich Greenfield. Okay, so that is very funny to me. That it's like, what about the investors? What about the investors? What about the investors? Yes, what about the investors? If actors aren't back to work by the fall, it will hurt network television, which needs them for new shows coveted by advertisers, Mr. Nathanson said. He added that traditional media companies based in the United States are at a disadvantage compared with Netflix, the dominant streaming company, which can take advantage of its production facilities around the world. It's like if the United Auto Workers go on strike, and all of a sudden you see more cars from Japan and Germany on the road. Jesus. I like how, because there's so much, like, just connected money interest in this, most coverage of this is, like, blaringly neutral. Like, the wording of every article written about this strike, it is blaringly loud how neutrally they're written, aren't they? This is the New York Times. Isn't it, like, blindingly loud how neutrally this is written, despite how cut and dry the morality of this situation being? Like, if there was a New York Times article about a sex trafficking ring, it would not write the article as though the New York Times is indifferent and neutral on the topic of whether or not sex trafficking is good or bad. Like, there would be clear, like, indication in the writing that, like, sex trafficking is bad. Here, it almost, like, doesn't want to take a position on whether or not underpaying and fucking over, like, workers in the media industry is good or bad. Like, it's staying super neutral because it doesn't want to upset any of the money men. There's nothing stopping theaters from doing older movies in the meanwhile. I prefer that. Dude, I literally prefer... When I find out... I never go to them, but I really do want to go to one. When I find out a local movie theater is doing a re-showing of the Lord of the Rings movies extended edition, I want to go. Like, I hear, oh, they're doing a re-showing of the extended edition Lord of the Rings in a movie theater? I want to do that. That sounds awesome. Like, they should be doing that more. Why is it always just got to be the newest movies? Like, why not show some older movies? A local theater played the 1977 theatrical release of Star Wars for May 4th. That's cool. That's really cool. I'd go to the movies more probably. Yeah, I totally would. If I found out imagine your favorite movie that came out like 15 years ago. You find out it's going to be re-premiering in a theater near you. You would totally go to that. Not to mention that's a great place to make friends. To find like a bunch of people going to watch the same 10-year-old movie you are. That's a great place to make friends. They could be playing a bunch of indie stuff in horror B movies. That would be super fun. Yeah, people would love that. People would love that. But no, it doesn't rake in enough money for the investors and the big money men at the top, so they're against it. And they have to demonize this idea. Long story short, strike's good, media money men bad.